Breaking up with my fiancé just 2 weeks before our wedding, feeling unsure about the relationship, wondering if I'm making the right decision. So I've never posted on Reddit before, so sorry if I'm no good at storytelling. I'm 21F and my fiancé is 24M, we shall call him Kevin. Kevin and I grew up complete different. He come from a lavish background with a massive family house. So went to a private school and was honestly spoilt rotten. I, on the other hand, grew up on a council estate. A 2-bedroom flat for 6 people wasn't ideal really. I went to a public school, which is perfectly fine. In my opinion, I think private schools are silly, but that's just me. Well, getting to the point, Kevin and I got engaged in July of last year. Our wedding is supposed to be October 11th. Yesterday, I had a lovely night out with my friends and my partner Kevin was looking after our 3-year-old daughter Alexi. I was texting him like normal when his replies went dry and he told me he was at my dad's house. I thought nothing of it and carried on about my night. When I got home at 12:30 p.m., he was still not home. I gave him a ring and he said he was in a Uber. This was weird because his car wasn't home and he always drives everywhere. Anyway, he gets home and he has clearly taken something. His pupils were massive and he was going on about how he really couldn't wait for us to finally get married. So he then said he thinks it would be a good idea if my sister moved in with us and left my dad's house so he could have some years to himself. I thought this was so odd, as why would my sister ever move in with us, as we are a family, and yes, my sister is my family, but when you grow up you want to start your own family, if that makes sense. Well, he kept acting weird, so I put Olivia to bed and just went about my evening routine. When I come back to the living room, he was scrolling his phone, and soon after he just passed out. So I did what any other self-respecting queen would do, and I snooped through that snake's phone. You would never even imagine what I found. My fiancé stalking my sister, or even worse, preying on her. I have no idea. I couldn't have ever imagined this would happen. My sister is 20, for context. I just can't believe this. I don't even know what to do. His Instagram search was entirely for her accounts. He's liked all her photos, he had an album with her name and screenshotted photos he had taken. This is so creepy. I have no idea what to do, what I should do. I'm completely heartbroken. The worst part is they do talk. I don't know if I'm missing parts. I've seen the texts, but it's like they've half been deleted as none of them have any context and make no sense. He said things like, "Have a good evening," and then she said, "Keep it between us. We can't spoil the surprise." My brain is trying to tell me it's a surprise about the wedding, but I highly doubt it. I feel so betrayed. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I honestly can't cope anymore. How could he do this to me, and with my sister? I have no solid evidence, but my mind is in pieces. I haven't confronted him yet because I know what he's like and I don't feel like taking the blame for this right now. I found underwear in his trouser pocket. It's not mine. It is red frilly ones. Honestly, I'm so heartbroken. We have a little girl. I can't believe this. Are they my sisters? How do I confront this? I'm so baffled. If we split up, I'll have nothing. I'm not entitled to the house, it's in his name. Most of the furniture I bought under his name. I'm a Sam, so I would be completely vulnerable. I haven't spoke to my dad yet either, as he favors my sister and would definitely take her word over anything. Honestly, I need help. I'm not sure what to do. Would I be wrong to end the engagement now? Does anyone know any ways I could get some money back if I did cancel? I feel like I don't even know Kevin.
Next story. Wanting nothing to do with my wife and child after a major conflict. Unsure if it's the right choice. Wondering if distancing myself would make me the villain. My 35M wife, 32F, and I have been together for 8 years. As with any couple, we've had our ups and downs, but we are a generally happy couple, and we love each other a lot. We've spoken about having children many times, and I was always very clear about the context in which I would be comfortable having children. I always envisioned myself having children with my wife, but I was also as open as I could possibly be about one specific thing. If she gets pregnant, I would want genetic testing done, and I would want an abortion to happen if the test showed severe problems like Down syndrome. I told my wife this was a deal breaker before we got married, going so far as to say several times in the past that refusing to these terms would be a divorce. I just honestly don't want to be a parent to a child with a severe cognitive disability if I can help it. I've seen many people in my life raise children with severe developmental delays. It seems extremely difficult. A handful of them have expressed regret of having the children directly to me, and I don't imagine I would handle it well personally. Of course, if our child happened to develop an issue after birth, that's another story, and I would understand that that's the hand I'd been dealt. So I would be more than willing to do what I could to raise the child in as happy and healthy of an environment possible. But if we can test for it and have an abortion, then that is 100% what I would want to happen. And that is the only term I had when agreeing to have children. She agreed to this throughout every time a tide has come up. She seemingly always understood where I was coming from, agreeing to this boundary fully. Since she always agreed, it seemed natural to start trying for kids once we were ready financially. We started trying for kids, and she got pregnant, so we arranged for testing when she hit around 2 months. We got the results back, and as you can imagine, the child would end up with Down syndrome if we brought it to term. My wife and I were very upset about this as we were really looking forward to having our first child, but I mentioned we would need to schedule an abortion. She said she wants to keep it. It has been 2 months now, and after more arguments than I could have imagined, she is not budging, and I'm at a loss as to what to do. I love my wife with my whole heart, but I also feel somewhat betrayed. I was very proactive in communicating the fact that this was a hard boundary for me, and I would, under no circumstances, want to have a child with Down syndrome or something like it if I could avoid it. Nor would I have married her or agreed to have children with her if she did not agree with this, which she did, until she got pregnant. I'm now heavily leaning towards getting a divorce and arranging for child support if she goes through with the pregnancy. I've communicated this to my wife, to which she cried and said I'm a piece of shit for saying that. Before I finish, let me head off what I imagine will be some things I've already thought about that people might bring up. 1. No, I don't think all people with genetic disorders should be aborted. Abortion is a family planning decision, and for my personal family planning, this is the decision I've come to. 2. I understand that many people have children with disabilities who go on to have fulfilling parenthood experiences. Thinking about myself and my personality, that probably won't be me. 3. What would you just abandon you wife child if they got into any serious medical problem? So no, I'd just prefer to avoid those situations if possible, and in this case my wife agreed to it until she got pregnant and only then changed her mind, thus the problem. 4. I understand how being faced with the actual pregnancy could lead to a change in her perspective, but I don't feel the same. I've thought as deeply as I can about this, and I feel broken up about it. Thoughts. Next story. Telling my mom and her husband that they aren't obligated to attend my wedding after their complaints, unsure if I'm being too harsh or just setting boundaries. The story of my conception and birth is complicated. My parents were together and broke up, and Mom got straight with her husband. She wasn't sure which of them was my father because Dad and her broke up on Tuesday, and she and her husband started dating Friday, but sex was involved in the same week. They were young, 1920s, at this time. Dad paid for a DNA test when I was born, and it proved he was my father. My mom's husband was apparently devastated because he wanted me to be his, and we'd be a perfect little family of 3. My dad was a part of my life from the start. My mom and her husband eventually got married. The relationship between the 3 was messy and complicated. My mom's husband tried to buy Dad off so he wouldn't go through with the DNA test. Mom's husband wanted his name on my birth certificate. Dad said no to the money, so they weren't best buddies or anything, and co-parents is a stretch too. My mom disliked that my dad had dated someone else after her while she was pregnant, but started before he knew. For some reason, Mom has a big problem with that, even though she had also moved on and didn't know who my father was. It's still something that bothers her. Growing up, I always felt more at home with Dad. He was the better parent and he grew up. He was jealous of my mom's husband, I'm almost certain, but he never said that to me, and he never put that on me. Meanwhile, my mom's husband told me he could have been my dad when I was 10, and he admitted to trying to get Dad to leave me and how he wouldn't take the money. But he was saying this like my dad was the bad guy for refusing. He would also try to talk me into inviting him over my dad to fatherly activities. My mom always seemed kinda overly obsessed with my dad's love life and less into being a parent. She'd also tell me she wished her husband was my dad. When I was 14, I chose to stay with my dad full-time instead of having 2 homes. When I got engaged earlier this year, I asked my dad if he'd do the traditional father of the bride wedding things, walk me down the aisle, father-daughter dance, and he said yes. My mom's husband was hurt and angry I didn't ask him to do anything. He complained to me and told me it would make more sense for him to do it. He said no. This is when Mom said if I'm willing to treat her husband, the man who deserves the title of dad, from me, her words, like this, then maybe they shouldn't come to the wedding. I told her nobody is forcing them to come. She's been pissed for a few weeks now and told me I'm so ungrateful to say something like that. She also told me they are just as much my parents as my dad is and I treat them differently.